Hey guys, it's me, Mitch. So I've been thinking about this assignment, and it's been, a little bit difficult for me as I've been trying to think about, personality, different personality theories that we've learned about, um, and what of those I myself believe, is the core makeup of personality, and just selecting a few of those that have them, just intertwine and explain, what is personality. Um, it's been kind of difficult for me because, right, wrong, or indifferent, all of these theories have some truth to them. All of them have a base truth to them that, the others can't explain. So it was really hard for me to narrow it down and say, well, this is important, this isn't important, keep this, throw that out. And then, the other thing that made this really difficult was super hate filming myself. So I had to read a lot about positive psychology and positive affirmations after watching myself 8 times and trying to figure out how to do this virtually. But as I was thinking about personality, and what I feel, is the core makeup of personality, what creates personality, what's the purpose of personality, I kind of figured, hey, if I want to think about these things, I need to figure out, what is personality? What's the definition of personality? And so I took our book. It's the Personality Puzzle by David Funder. And on page 5, it just, has a simple definition. It says, personality is an individual's characteristic patterns of thought, emotion, and behavior, together with the psychological mechanisms, hidden or not, behind those patterns. So I thought it was, it's a pretty good definition, but I think equally it just kind of left me wondering, like, yeah, okay, well, great, that's what personality is, but, what does personality do? Why do we have a personality? So I started thinking about that a little bit more, right? Because we all have a different personality. We all have these different core concepts, these different traits. And really it was just difficult for me to figure out, what are the different contributing factors? And so I kind of, broke it down and was, what's the purpose of personality? So I went, thought far back as I could and thought of like the beginning of civilization, right? From an evolutionary standpoint, the necessity for personality was realistically the basis for survival of the human race. That if we were unable to get this core idea of, what's right, what's wrong, of what's desirable and what's not within a person, realistically, we wouldn't have developed personalities. And we wouldn't have been able to, have a society as a whole, but we'd be individuals. And I thought a little bit more about that, So we couple of concepts of evolutionary psychology, or maybe, we talk about very stereotypical idea that, males are fixated on physical attraction. Well, why would that be, right? Well, males, from the get-go, figured out what they liked, and the different signals and indicators of a woman who's ready to bear children, the whole idea of continuing on the human race. And then there's the other side, the other stereotype. Well, women like a man that makes money, has skills, these types of things. And it goes back to the same idea: is this person going to be able to provide for me and my kin? From an evolutionary standpoint, that's going to be very important for a female, correct? She can only give off one offspring in the human race typically, and is a male going to be able to provide for her and her child, whereas the male is more preoccupied with, is this female going to be faithful? Am I raising my own child? I'm not using my resources on my own child. So we see that as a necessity for the continuation of society. And like I said before, the building of social norms, the idea of what's right and wrong, became, a necessity to create civilization so that we could all be in larger groups instead of, these nomadic type people. And so with that, I just kind of, started thinking, about the different things that contribute to personality. And, we talked about so many different aspects. Biological, the idea, it's chemical reactions, the synapse, just how your brain is made up is, going to make you have a different kind of personality. Then, we moved on to like Freud, with a little bit more different kind of ideas. Your parents screwed you up and now you have sexual problems type of idea. We moved, phenomenological ideas of, hey, introspection, self-actualization, knowing yourself. The idea of, comes to mind of the, therapist sitting on a chair and saying, well, what else, right? And that's kind of what we consistently think of. For me, I thought about what are the main components of personality, and I think, my answer, based on my experience, I think there's three base and that are the most important, because I think they cover where the other ones lack. And so, to me, the very first of all of them is biological. All right, and so that's for a couple different reasons. Number one is kind of either you have it or you don't. You have the mental capacity or you don't, and that's an important factor of personality. And then on a deeper level, talking chemically, there's so many different chemicals that help you portray different emotions. And they're at the base root of it. They're this base idea. And so I was thinking about testosterone. If you have more or less testosterone, more testosterone, maybe you're going to be a little bit more aggressive in situations. You're going to be maybe a little bit more of a go-getter kind of person that's like not afraid of competition. Oxytocin, you're going to be a little bit happier person. The more you have, you're going to be happy, open. This idea, a lot of times oxytocin is related with extroversion, these kinds of ideas. Cortisol, if you have more cortisol, you're going to be, more high strung, a little more stressed out. And those are all just kind of the base of who you are physically, physiologically. And that is going to play a huge role on what your personality is, because that's kind of the base, the building block. And I'll come back to that idea of the building blocks. The next item that I felt was important, and probably, one of the most important, is the idea of empiricism, that we're just kind of a sum of all our experiences. And, a lot of people are like, want to have this idea of, free will. I can choose to do whatever I want. I'm whoever I want to be. But I think empiricism kind of explains, well, why do we react the way we do in every situation we do, right? We're the sum of all our experiences. So it comes down to, hey, what experience do I have in life? Maybe I had a negative experience with, dogs as a child. So now I exhibit a fear of dogs as an adult, right? And I think that plays a huge role in personality. This overall idea of, your experiences in different situations kind of inform you of how to act in those situations. Negative situation, you have a negative result, you're gonna avoid that situation. You have a positive result, you're gonna go after that situation more and more. And I think that in itself is an important idea. It also, brings in the whole entire idea of like different learning theories. The idea that, that we've been talking about of, it's not necessarily, what the prize at the end is, but the idea of what the prize is, the idea of what the reward will be, and how important that type of reward would be to you that keeps you driving. But empiricism, lacks in one part, and that's the idea of the fact that it's not that worried about the conscious mind, and that's what makes us, human. And so for me, the next part that kind of covers, empiricism's butt a little bit is the phenomenological approach. And, with this idea of awareness of who we are, a kind of a sense of purpose, the attempt of self-actualization, becoming the very best we can be, and that most important part, that conscious experience. And so this is how I kind of see them as tying in, is that, empiricism may lack that conscious experience, but phenomenologically, that gives us the ability to have introspection, look inside ourselves and say, did I truly enjoy that situation? To create situations that we can learn from, which, it's kind of this cycle between empiricism and introspection of saying, no, I didn't really enjoy that, creating a negative experience internally, not necessarily externally, but internally, so that we can avoid that type of situation. And so I kind of, made a little visual aid. It's not the greatest, but this was my kind of idea or concept, is that here at the base is the biological, You need the biological base of emotion. If you don't have sufficient oxytocin, you're not going to be able to be as happy. So you need to have that oxytocin. Then there's going to be your experiences, right? If you had great experiences as being an extrovert, as a child, as an adult, you're going to continue with those experiences. And as you get to the phenomenological approach, you're going to have introspection about it. You're going to say, hey, you know what? I enjoy being in these situations. You're going to make it a greater enjoyment for you. And you're going to continue to go after those types of situations, put yourself in that, format so that you can be an extrovert. And so I'll bring that back up here in a moment. So I thought about, how does this apply to me? Well, biologically, first, go with, what do I have? Do I have the mental, capacity? Am I chemically balanced, right? So I thought of the idea, hey, I'm kind of an extrovert, right? So, have this gamble. My mother's very much an extrovert. My father's very much not. So this idea of extroversion really is, would have been a gamble for me, right? My levels of oxytocin. My dad's a little bit, more testosterone, the alpha male kind of, but a little bit angry. But my mother's, the very, outgoing, loves talking to everybody kind of person. So that kind of, that was my base. Obviously I have, testosterone levels, but I think that my oxytocin levels are most likely, fairly high, because it makes me, have this happy feeling, this extroverted feeling, this feeling that I want to talk to other people and engage them. And then I think, after that base, on top of it, I built upon it with, good experiences and bad experiences of extroversion throughout my life, of engaging other kids throughout primary, and throughout, elementary and middle school. And then I think about, negative experiences that I learned from. So I was a little bit shy, didn't like talking to adults much when I was a child. My father would always say, supercalifragilistic from Mary Poppins, right? And it would always embarrass me so much. And so much so that I knew I do not want him to say that anymore. So I started, being more talkative, addressing adults, saying, hey, this is what I would like. Would you mind helping me with this type of thing? And it pushed me towards, that experience pushed me towards extroversion, because to avoid a negative experience of embarrassment, it forced me into the situation of being, outgoing. And then I think finally, on top of after, my biology, my experiences throughout life, I'm here of this self-actualization part, this introspection, the phenomenological approach, and I go, what I do like talking to people. I like being outgoing. I like, helping people with their problems. So to self-actualize, to continue in that thing, I think I'm going to go to college. I think I'm going to study psychology, right? I like working with people. I like talking with people. And I recognize that, and I can grow from it. So I think that, overall, there's probably more aspects of this that I've missed, right? I didn't take into consideration, different cultural parts, but I do feel that, it's this base pyramid that you build. You build from your biology to your experience to realistically just trying to reach your full potential, and the ability to self-actualize. And with that, you create your personality, or if you don't like where you're at, you create that negative experience that will go back, and you'll always have that experience, internally. Hey, I didn't enjoy that situation. So just to wrap it up, just quick overview. Biology, it's your base. You have it or you don't. There's not much you can do about it. Empiricism, you're going to experience things, and based on those experiences, you're going to react a certain way. And then phenomenological, you're going to have that introspection. You have that conscience. That's what makes you human. And you're going to be able to determine whether or not those experiences were truly, a good experience for you. And if they weren't, you'll create a negative internal experience, which will go back, through, and you'll avoid those situations again. And overall, just kind of creating this base as you build a base, going up. You can't really invert it, wouldn't be able to stand that way. But these basic ideas are, build upon each other. I appreciate your time, you guys, and I'll see you in class.